have the territorial rights to San Jose. And when the Giants stayed in San Francisco, and we made a deal, we being the city of San Francisco, made a deal with the Giants signed this deal, which we get, for which we, the San Francisco city, get an annual payment, a rental payment. The Giants did that in reliance on having control over the San Jose territory, and if you deprive the Giants of that territory, then the city of San Francisco may be defeated in its legitimate expectation
of rent
being paid to them.
Right.
And so he's just here talking about concerns over potential tampering with San Francisco Giants' territorial rights. In effect, what Mr. Herrera is asserting is that the city, the taxpayers of San Francisco are a third-party beneficiary of those, or not a third-party beneficiary, but are a beneficiary of those territorial rights because of the rent payments, and that baseball can't change the rules of the game.
And arguably, their interference could be tortious interference, right?
I'm not
because they're
speak,
third party, technically.
I'm not going to speak for Dennis, and I'm not sure that I have ever understood just what baseball's territorial rights mean. I don't know what that means. I just don't. I mean, because baseball is such an idiosyncratic business, precisely because it's not covered by antitrust laws.
Right.
So, what do territorial rights mean in an idiosyncratic business that is not subject to federal antitrust law? That's a specialty that's beyond my pay grade. I don't really understand what that all means. I do know that over the years, the Giants relied upon that territory in creating their ballpark. I also know that here in Oakland, we relied on certain representations by the A's in signing a very flexible and advantageous lease with them. And I'm looking into whether or not their very clear attempt to move to San Jose and San Jose's attempts to lure the A's, whether or not those are interfering with our rights under our lease.
Can I chime in on that?
Yeah, sure.
As I understood it, and I wrote about, I'm just going to put on my cap as if I were somebody's advisor. Mm-hmm. Their territorial rights basically are internal only to the operation of baseball. If you and I have a team, this is like the Bay and all this mm-hmm. stuff, right? You've got your economic base, you know. If I go over here to build my stadium, then basically, and you're getting 47% of your fan base from there, mm-hmm. I'm screwing with your bucks.
Right.
So you're supposed to stay out of my buck territory.
Right.
That's what, you know, and that's
right.
that's the whole point.
Right. No, I guess what I'm saying is when I say I don't understand it, I understand what it's supposed to mean. I don't
right.
understand what it means legally. I don't understand whether or not
it's truly enforceable.
Whether I don't know whether it's enforceable. I just don't know. I certainly don't know whether
it's a breach of contract.
I don't know whether it's I don't know. It's an antitrust. It's a place that's exempt. It's in another world. You know, then in the normal world you couldn't have territories because it would be antitrust.
Right.
So I don't know how any of this works. Again,
it's
what
like
I do know.
They're screwing with themselves. I mean, it's weird.
I don't really understand that. What I do understand is
saying it's not you. I'm just saying,
What I do understand is that the A's made certain promises to us as part of their lease, and I'm looking at whether or not their actions have violated those promises. Mm. And I can't say more than that right now.
Shifting gears.
Yes, sir.
Mayor's race. What's happening?
Well, what's happening is you've got two major competitors. That's Councilmember Kwan, the mm-hmm. chair of the Finance Committee, and former State Senator Don Parada. Parada's clearly the favorite.
So you call that a competition?
Well, there's other players involved too, right? There's a young fellow who's an assistant district attorney.
What's his name? Scott? Not Scott Howard.
I don't recall. Okay. But
that might give him motivation.
Well, no, I don't want to insult him or anything.
No, I'm not. Hey, I don't recall either.
So, yeah, it's not coming to my head right now.
Hey, no offense. We just, you got to put yourself out there.
Yeah. So, that fella, there's a fella from the Greens who's not out yet, so I don't want to mention, but mm-hmm. he's talking about running. I'm not sure we've seen all council members yet.
Okay. There's a young African American lady that approached me.
Sorry?
Young African American lady approached me, says
Okay.
she's running.
Okay, who's that?
Michaela, I don't want to mispronounce her last
Okay.
name, but yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of people. I think Don is the clear favorite. I don't think, I mean, this is why we actually have the elections. I don't think it's done yet.
So Robert Bob is out, huh?
Oh, Robert, I never believed Robert Bob was in. I never for a minute believed Robert Bob was in. I don't see Robert coming back here to run for a job that pays $180,000 and upset the apple cart. He's doing important and interesting work in Detroit right now. I don't see why he would give that up in order to come back and jump into a difficult race, because Don will be hard to beat.
Yeah.
So no, I never believed Robert was in play.
But would Don be a good mayor?
I think Don would be a good mayor. I don't know that I'm sure I wouldn't agree with him on a lot of things. I'm sure there'd be a lot I would agree with him on. But whether it's Don or it's Gene, we have had and again, I'm not saying this with any intention toward any recrimination.
Sure.
But we have not had a strong executive branch in this city since summer of 2003, when Mayor Brown fired Robert Bob.
Right.
After that point, with the exception of the 3 or 4 issues that Mayor Brown was interested in, he really did not serve as a strong, hands-on executive.
Right.
He was excellent in terms of being very hands-on in those issues that mattered, that he was interested in. But in the other issues, the multilateral, multitudinous issues that face a mayor,
Right.
once Robert was gone, it largely wasn't happening. And the current administration never really got their sea legs. They came in with a good team, and then most of that months,
Right.
and the mayor has not really been a strong, comprehensive presence.
Why does it, I mean, with all the people that have been around, myself included, and why don't people look back and just ask for advice?
They don't. I
You know,
have no idea.
it never ceases to me. I don't want to work for these guys, but you
I
know,
have no idea.
when it says, "Hey, Zenny, come on in, we'll give you some advice,"
Comfort level, I
happy
don't
to.
know.
You
I don't know.
give it to them for free.
I don't
But
know.
It's weird, you know.
I don't know, but let me go back to the point.
Sure.
So the point is, you've had a vacuum, and that vacuum in the executive branch has created, since nature abhors a vacuum and so does politics, the city council members have moved into that vacuum.
Right.
And so right now, you've got a system that, in my opinion, not a legal opinion, but my opinion as a longtime
Right.
observer and participant here at City Hall, the city council is acting more as an executive directorate and less as a legislature. They're playing out of position. It's not their fault. The public demands that their district council members get them answers from this bureaucracy, which is remarkably non-responsive bureaucracy.
Right.
And
Are you saying that they're basically flirting with the charter in terms of how they work with city staff?
no, I'm here to tell you that they're playing out of position. They're playing the role of executives because there's a vacuum in the executive
Right.
that they're filling, that there is a demand for them to
Well, I
fill.
guess what does that mean? Because you know they can't tamper with staff.
They can't interfere.
I've always
with
thought it was
staff.
ridiculous, but you know.
Well, I don't know whether it's ridiculous. It is the charter that
Right.
says they cannot interfere. But the line, where you draw the line as to what constitutes interference
the definition of it, right.
as opposed to inquiry, is a very gray area. It can't be dealt with by trying to write a law or a regulation. What the system requires is an executive branch acting as an executive branch.
Right.
Now, why do I bring all that up? Whether Gene is elected or Don is elected, both of those people throughout their careers have demonstrated an affinity for the accumulation of power. And either of them will have a struggle upon becoming mayor, upon assuming that role. Either Don or Gene will find that they have to get control back over the executive function, which has leaked out over the years, to the legislature, to the council. either of those people, Don or Gene, will be, I believe, based on, what predict the future based on how people behave.
Sure,
in the past,
sure.
Either of them will be aggressive in trying to recoup and start the power into the mayor's office. And I think that alone, again, not endorsing at all either of them and not saying that either of them would make decisions that I agree with, just as the person who's supposed to be minding the charter, I think it would be very healthy for the city to have an aggressively, a mayor who is aggressive in the use of power, would be good at rebalancing the system to where it's supposed to be.
Can you and will you make an endorsement?
No, I cannot make an endorsement, and I will not make.
Right.
I have very strong feelings that are personal about which of the major candidates would make a better mayor. Some of my very, very close family members and friends have heard me talk about this, but as city attorney, and as Oakland's first elected city attorney, I've always been of the mind that the city attorney's office should stay out of the local elections. That it's just not good for the system. And I've paid a political price for that, because then when I've run for other office, people say, well, you didn't endorse me, why am I going to endorse you? You weren't there for me. And I understand that. I've been in politics long enough. They're right for where they look at the world.
Right.
They're right in
But
that
there are other
world.
ways you can be of assistance without.
Well, yes. I mean, certainly I get asked advice.
And I'm not saying anything with a backward
No.
story. I'm just being,
No, you get. I mean, it depends on whether or not someone who's running is, going to pick up the phone and ask questions. Because I'll talk to any of the candidates. Okay, well, this is how I see it, and this is what I know, in terms of what I can tell them. Now, I can speak much more frankly with Gene about certain cases that the city has than I can with Don, because Gene has information
She has a history,
that I can't.
right. She has a history.
She has confidential information
Right.
that I can't give Don.
And Don doesn't have. So Don will
doesn't
have to
have.
sort of get up to speed when he gets in.
Some of it will have to be that way, but there's a lot of things that are not in the public domain that are not confidential, that, if someone asks, I'm happy to share with them, because whoever wins,
And I'm
again,
not
has
saying
strong...
right. And I'm not saying a supporter of Gene. I'm just
No,
saying.
no, I didn't.
Or
do that.
attacking her.
No, not,
Okay.
no. I have strong feelings, but whatever my feelings are, as soon as the election is over, I'm all for whoever's mayor. I want them to succeed. It's not a zero-sum game. As a politician, if leadership in Oakland looks good, then we all look good. If people are unhappy with the leadership here,
Right.
that doesn't make, even though when you look at, you say, well, people are upset with the city council, but hey, they're not upset with the city attorney. That's very cold comfort. Most people just say they're all a bunch of bums. And so those of us who maybe we think are doing a better job, we're kind of logged in with everybody else.
Hey, but the nepotism thing. Are you happy with our progress, or unhappy, or?
It's still being litigated.
Because that report was really damning.
You mean the auditor's report?
Yeah, the auditor's report. Yeah.
Look, I'm all for a strong nepotism law. I always have been. It's been litigated. It's part of the cultural problem here at the city that, you need to have a balance between the rights of employees, and I think that's really super important, particularly their privacy, against the rights of the taxpayers to know that we're running a shop here that's on the level.
Right.
And obviously, people who are employees want to strike that balance a different way than the public does. My tendency is to think that the balance here has been too much concerned with the rights of employees and not enough concerned with the transparency issues. I think everybody knows that I've always been much more in favor of transparency. But, we're going to work that out. It's going to work itself out.
All right. Lastly, let's say that I decided I want to run for city council in a certain district. Okay. Just in speaking very general terms, me as a citizen. But I didn't want to upset the incumbent. Let's say the incumbent decided to run for a higher office, maybe senator. But then they don't, and I've already launched my campaign. What do? Do I bull ahead and push them out of the way?
I think you have to think about that before you jump in, because if you're going to jump in, you're going to start raising money. You're going to start. You're going to rearrange your family and personal obligations to allow you to run. One of the things that folks, I think, have insufficient appreciation for is the process of running is not merely a decision for the candidate. All of the candidate's friends and supporters are bought in and invested as well. So once they've really committed, it's hard to back away by saying, well, now the incumbent's back in. On the other hand, if the incumbent isn't in, and you start going to people and saying, can you give me money, can you do this, can you do that, the question is going to be, are you in this for the long haul?
Right.
And so it's hard to get ahead of steam up early
investment.
if it's right, because it's an investment of time and money, and it's
Right.
an emotional investment in many cases. So I think it's difficult to get out there and run unless you say, I'm running, period. But it has been done. To do it the other way, say, look, if I'm okay with the incumbent, but if the incumbent's not in, I want to take a try. I think people do understand that, but it's still more difficult than just saying, I'm in.
And lastly,
Yeah.
this parking situation has gotten everybody, including me, in a god doggone snit. What are we going to do about this? I mean, we're spearheading an initiative. I know you don't do endorsements and all that stuff, but what's your take on all this?
My
It's a
take on
very
it.
open question.
Well, my take on it.
Deliberately so, because I don't
Yeah.
want to violate your position.
No, my take on it is very simple. Council is faced with nothing but horrible choices in terms of cuts and in terms of raising revenue. I would not, had I been on the council, I would not have chosen to have gone in this direction. Having said that, that's easy for me to say sitting here. They were certainly within their legal rights, the council, to do it. I don't think there's any question that it was legal. But I think themselves in trouble was that they did it without real. Their notice on it was legally sound, but just as a former council member, if I were pushing forward something that you had to know was going to be that unpopular, you had to know it was going to be unpopular. And I laud them for doing something that they felt was in the long-term interest of the organization, even though it was unpopular. That took courage. And I think, I know it's hard to do it because a lot of people think the decision was just, wrong. But they were doing something they knew wasn't going to be popular.
Right.
So I think we have to give them credit for that. On the other hand, had they created more fora for people to talk with them about how to handle it, had they done it more deliberately, then I think they might have found...
As opposed to a Mickey Mouse faction like that sound? Just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Had they fashioned it more deliberately, they might have come up with something different. They might have backed away. They might have had the public ready for it, instead of what created so much of the anger was that one day you woke up and there were tickets in places where there hadn't been tickets ever before.
Right.
That you were being ticketed for not plugging the meter past 6 o'clock, but the sign said 6 o'clock.
And not only that, between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m., they're looking at if a person's in a red zone even 2 or 3 inches and they're ticketing.
Yeah.
Then people are getting 5 tickets and they're getting towed left and right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all of this is a very aggressive way to deal with revenue raising. Again, I'm not critical of their courage in doing it. Where I would be critical is it would have been good, I think, and would have blunted the criticism. Wouldn't have eliminated it, but would have blunted the criticism had it been more carefully structured as a policy process to the decision.
Right.
The way they did it made it look as though they were trying to sneak something through. I know that wasn't what they were doing. What they were doing was they felt up against it. What can we do? And they just threw it in there. But you know, most of the council members have been there a while and have a lot of experience. I think they had to know that that was going to create an uproar. And if they didn't, then they really need to be examining what their outreach is actually like, whether they're really touching members of the public or they're just talking with people who agree with them.
Hey man, I know you got more work to do. Oh, and this is a disclosure for those of you who don't know. I've known you since what, 91?
91.
1991, his kids and my godkids, I got their gifts and all that stuff. All right, so Merry Christmas. Hey man,
Take
thanks
care.
a lot.
Happy holidays,
Happy
everybody.
holidays. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.